guys, and welcome back to the Who Cares Anyway podcast. We got a special little bonus episode for this week. No fancy production, no switching between cameras and whatnot, because literally it's just Nico and myself. We're just kind of hanging out here for a little bit. Got some stuff I want to talk about, and also do sort of a discussion on the Schmoedown teams tournament so far, as well as our predictions for Spectacular, because, as we've mentioned many times throughout the past few weeks, we're going to be there in person. And I'm looking forward to seeing how different our opinions are going to be. Because if there's anything Nico and I just love to do, is be on complete opposites in terms of this stuff. So, as you may have noticed, obviously, this is airing Friday night, but we're not live, obviously, because, right now I'm probably at a concert for a cancer benefit in St. Pete Beach, Florida. Probably about 3 sheets to the wind, so it'll be vacation. I need it, as much as I hate to admit it. But yeah, Nico, what is up, man? How are you doing this evening?
I'm assuming that in real time, as this video is airing, I'm doing finals work, because that's pretty much what my life consists of right now. And boy.
Almost
I can't tell you how many times I've thought in the back of my head, how am I going to balance any last minute things that I need to do for finals with the trip for the Spectacular? Like, I'm not bringing my book bag with me on this trip, although I might have to, considering, flying from west to east, you gain 3 hours plus the time on the flight, so I might actually have to do some stuff on the plane.
Well, that's what I was about to say. Like, you could do it on the flight, just don't do it once you land.
Fair, it's just a struggle to do work when I'm on a plane. I don't know. It's one of those things. Like, I like to relax when I'm on a plane, because the fact that we're on a machine that's in the sky, who knows how high up. Like, that's nerve-wracking enough as it is, so the one thing you want to do is relax. You don't really want to put extra stress on yourself by having to do work.
Well, just do what Video Drew does and bring some WD-40 with you. You'll be fine.
I don't know. Maybe not that. But
maybe not.
We'll see. Yeah. I got time to figure it out.
You do. You still got a week. As for me, Look, I don't like to sound like a grump, but I do know that I do overwork myself a little bit. I need to get out of that habit. One day I will. But for
this
now,
is why we're taking auditions for next year, so we can have more people to cover some of what we do. Like, that's the beauty of having multiple people, that I now realize Call to Action was onto something when they had, we originally laughed at the fact that they had 10 people on their admins.
We laugh at them because they overfilled themselves, and shit. I hate to be that guy, but why I think Take 3 was so successful right away? Because they had a big balanced team where everyone had one job and they stuck to it. Whereas Call to Action, they're still trying to figure that out. But it is what it is. But we're not here to crap on our rivals who, we'll be hanging out with.
I'm praising them for the fact now that they have so many people on the roster, because it gives other people breaks to have lives, and everyone gets a chance to explore what they're good at and what they need work on. That's the benefit of having a big team, is you get to explore new abilities and possibilities.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and it's not that we necessarily couldn't do a lot of this stuff ourselves. It's just a matter of, I want other people on the team. And that's why, again, as I'll mention at the end of the video, d2achannel@gmail.com, dtoa channel@gmail.com. But before we dive into the other stuff, there is something that unfortunately we have to talk about. And it's not easy. Straight up. If you were to ask me who I think one of the best personalities in all of the fan leagues is, it's Dollface. She she brought a presence to everyone that showed that she wasn't someone to be messed with, and she backed that up with her trivia knowledge. I mean, one of the best things about both her and Emma McAllister was that every time you played her, she brought out the best in you. Like, she made you play a damn good game if you were going to beat her. I say what you will about the face-off. Whatever. We all have our opinions. One of the best matches I've had all year was my match against her. Sure, it wasn't my most dominant performance, but sure. And yeah, perfect round 1 for me. Good job. But then I had crappy round 2, and she had a perfect round 2, which allowed her to catch up and tie. So that was a match that will always stick with me.
She made things interesting, both from a gameplay perspective and more so from a personality perspective.
Yeah.
I say this as the wrestling guy on this show. There have been so many times where I wanted to incorporate some form of character development that goes above and beyond what other people have done here in these fan leagues, but it's just been a matter of time and money and resources to get the execution right. And so, I've never really dove into stuff like that yet, even though I was probably one of the most qualified people to go into that realm. But Emma, she never let that stop her. She found a way to turn a handicap into part of her character. That takes a lot of guts, a lot of courage, a lot of know-how, a lot of creativity. She was an inspiration to us all, and I think she still is. And every video she was on, she made it special somehow, whether it was with the banter with the people hosting and asking the questions, or with her back and forth with the competitors. She and I had been on and off working for the longest time on trying to figure out how to do an unrequited love storyline. Dollface kept stalking me, and I just kept pushing her away, and so she kept trying to get me into the dollhouse somehow. Even before the dollhouse was officially a thing, that she was trying to get that set up, and I was into it. It was just the timing never worked out, and every time we came close, something came up. But if anyone could have made that storyline work, it was her, because she was a student of the game, and she knew she understood kayfabe probably better than most, even better than some of the wrestling guys who are also in this community. She had that know-how, and I would love to see if there's recorded footage of her audition for when she did the Schmoedown Patreon audition, because Brianne Chandler was apparently on that call. She got to see it firsthand, and she had some lovely words to say about Dollface in the comment section earlier today, for us today, Wednesday for the rest of you watching. But yeah, the community is going to be a weird place without her, because she was a special light among all of us. And my thoughts are with her family. My thoughts are with her friends. James Spence has been taking this pretty hard. She was his best friend. She was his introduction into this community. And we all have that person who sort of brought us in and made us feel at home. And when that special person is no longer with you, it feels a little weird. So James, the whole Schmoedown fan community is with you in this time. If you need shoulders to cry on, we're here for you, because Dollface was a light to us the same way she was for you.
Absolutely. And obviously we've had to use past tense verbs because, unfortunately, yesterday, as of this recording, or rather Monday, sorry, she did pass away. And we knew that she was sick, but honestly, she was one of the people that I respected the most in this league, and it was for one reason. Even though she was sick and she knew she was potentially knocking on death's door literally any time, she still wanted to be here. She still wanted to be involved. She still wanted to compete in matches, and that's the kind of balls that not even the manliest of dudes have. Like, she was that committed to everything that makes the fan leagues what they are, and it showed. And she would have been a phenomenal talent in the Schmoedown.
And we've had people play injured before. Like Sandy Robinson, he played a match after he had some sort of injury or illness that left him. He had to perform literally on his side. Brooklyn Vale, he came back after having surgery on his ear from to correct something that happened in another surgery on his ear from his childhood. And even I played a match once just a few days after having had a procedure done as well, in which I was on a lot of medication. The only person who I think understands her pain, though, of having to perform while on death's door was Ben Bateman. And even then, that didn't really compare much to what she was going through. Like, she was a trooper. Her passion for this game and for this community that we're all a part of what was strong enough that she could overcome whatever was ailing her, because I'm not totally familiar on the specifics other than it left her paralyzed and in a wheelchair, so we won't touch on that. But her drive, her passion, those completely outweighed the ailments that plagued her, and she's an inspiration to us all in death, in life, what have you. She will be missed, but she will never be forgotten.
No. And I'm honestly glad that I at least got to tell her what an inspiration I think she is, and I think she will continue to be. Like, 5 years from now, when Schmoedown is on season 10, and when most of the fan league players currently are now up in the leagues, and there's international Schmoedowns and whatnot, people are still going to remember the name Dollface and Emma McAllister, as they damn well should, because she, funny enough, I would honestly call her someone who knew how to unite the leagues. Because, yeah, she was a big presence on Full Metal. She was a big presence on Multiplex. She was a big presence in the Face-Off, obviously. She was big. She definitely would have been a big presence everywhere else had she had the ability to. And obviously, Emma, we're gonna miss the hell out of you.
She never played in combat wrestling trivia, but her presence could be felt there, just in the form of the storylines that Hunter has obviously been trying to tell for the past year. Like, she's a big inspiration in that too. Even the places she didn't play, she was a gigantic presence. And like we keep saying, she will be missed, but she will never be forgotten. Her spirit will live on in this game. Much like so many before her, like John Schnepp, much like I'm sorry, I'm blanking right now, but she is a presence that will never be forgotten.
It's all good, man. It's all good. And it's kind of weird, because I remember in 2016 there was another fan, Dylan Esposito, I believe it was the name, the guy who died tragically in a car accident. And because I was so new to Schmoes at the time, like it didn't really affect me that much. Like, I was sad for the people who knew him, but I didn't know him. But here it hurts a lot more differently, because I very vividly remember seeing the quote-unquote rise of Emma / Dollface, and I've squared off against her in several different places. And yeah, I'm not gonna lie, this one stings. It stings to lose a friend. It stings to lose someone who was such a personality in the community. And obviously we're going to miss you, Emma. And once again, thank you for everything. We love you, and we won't forget you, because we won't let that happen.
And I should mention that I believe this Sunday, so 2 days after this goes up, you can say if you have the details better than I do.
So this Sunday, over on Call to Action, James and the rest of the guys there will be essentially holding a kind of a let's get together and share memories of Emma, and they will be taking proceeds that will go to Emma's family once all is said and done. So listen up, you crazy Canuck. Cheers to you.
And Dollface, I know in storyline I never really accepted your love, but no, you were always in my heart.
Oh. So, yeah, sorry to start this out on a little bit of a downer, guys, but, this, and I very vividly remember, this happened for us only a couple hours ago, but, it'll be a couple days when this airs. Right before we taped the Family versus Paddington 2 match, I had to drop the news to the guys, and Case said it straight up ruined his day right there, and I'm like, yep, that's all of us. But if there's something that I think we can all take a lesson from Emma on, let's take our pain right now, and let's use it for something better. Let's use it to come together.
Because that's what she did. That's what made her so beloved around here. Was she made the best of a bad situation every single time.
Yeah.
She turned her ailments into a character. She turned her demons into storylines that inspired so many others to try the kayfabe realm when they were afraid to. Yeah. Her passion is felt everywhere and by everyone she's ever interacted with, directly or indirectly.
Yes. So, as we start to come out of that, let's talk about something that I think she would have a lot of thoughts on, and that is the 2019 Schmoedown Teams Tournament so far. So, as I mentioned, we're going to kind of do a little bit of a recap of all the matches we've had in Round 1, all the matches we've seen so far in Round 2, and then we're going to sort of predict the rest of the tournament for both of us, because we won't be on those reactions for the most part, and, or at least I won't. And then we're going to try to predict the Schmoedown Spectacular card and what's going to happen moving forward into 2020. So, Nico, you ready?
Yeah. First, let's just give a disclaimer that, again, we're pre-taping this on Wednesday, so 2 days before the Odd Couple versus Shazam has dropped. So we don't know what happened in that match, so there's a very strong chance our predictions could be off from the very beginning.
Yep, it's very possible. And I won't truly find out till Spectacular. I'll keep up with the matches and whatnot, but, obviously, if I'm not on for reactions, I don't really worry about it all that much. So, but let's go back to the beginning of the tournament. And so I hate being this guy, but we should start by just, giving a quick thoughts once again on what I will consider probably the worst match of the year, which is simultaneously one of the most impressive matches of the year for one team. Not so much for Only Stupid Answers.
Look, this is why the UFC has Fight of the Night awards for every pay-per-view card, and also Performance of the Night awards for every pay-per-view card. So they can reward the fighters that put on really great showings, even when their opponents maybe not so much. And in this case, if there was a Performance of the Night award, it would have definitely gone to the Odd Couple here.
Yes.
Nobody's ever bum rushed through a team to the point that they answered their second round questions and the other team wasn't even able to do that because the score was just too insurmountably high. There was I think it was a 21 point disadvantage for Only Stupid Answers.
22, because the final score was 27 to 5.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Big yikes. And, credit to Only Stupid Answers. They took it in stride, and they're like, hey, we're willing to set records, even if it's on the losing end of the records. There are to use another wrestling reference, the Royal Rumble. There are people who are in the record books for shortest amount of time spent in the match. Like, I think R-Truth got eliminated in 1 second once. Like, he just hopped over the ropes and then someone knocked him back over the ropes. So it happens. It happens. You play some bad games sometimes. And in this case, it was a combination of Only Stupid Answers playing a really bad game and the Odd Couple playing the game of their lives.
Yeah. Which, it's so funny because on the other side of that corner of the bracket, then you have one of the best matches in all of round one. You know, Shazam going up against the movie guys, and if I've said it once, I'll say it again, guys. I'll say it again here, folks. Paul Preston, promo of the year. Through the mist, through the woods, through the darkness and the shadows, it's a nightmare, but it's one exciting ride. Yeah, nope, literally. Like, there better be a promo of the year award, and he better win it. Like, for once, I'm all aboard the Paul Preston train. Choo choo. That's how you hook me.
And your big complaint with him was that you felt he was getting too much exposure too quickly. But then the benefit of he lost in the singles tournament after playing Ben Bateman, I believe.
Yep.
And then we had a couple weeks where he wasn't on screen, so it kind of like gave you the palate cleanser you needed to win for him to win you back over, and he did exactly that. Plus his teammate, who his name, can you help me on that? His teammate Adam, he had a rough first game when he debuted earlier this year, but this was his redemption. He showed that why the movie guys are such a strong team and why they maybe deserve to be higher seeded than they were. But, the performance from before the tournament kind of impacted the seeding. This was their showing. This was their better showing. I'm happy they had that better showing. I'm a little nervous since they've been eliminated from the tournament that they might get split up before they really got a chance to find their momentum.
They will.
But you can hope for the best. You can hope for the best. Yeah. There are going to be managers who are going to want to keep teams together, even if they have to use two separate picks to do so. But yeah, Shazam, they were on point in this match too, and I don't see that stopping anytime soon. Bibiani's just been on a roll this year. Brendan Meyer, he's had a really good year that has just had some off moments, but I feel like he's capable of recovery. It all depends on what questions are asked. But the first match for Shazam in this tournament was a really good one.
Yeah, absolutely. And while of course, Paul hasn't won me over with his character yet, but again, as far as promos go, that's gonna be one of the all-time greats for me.
He gets the personality aspect of this game.
Absolutely. Which, we can say the same for moving down a little bit. Time Machine Scream Queens. That was a much needed not knockout match for that first week, because, man. Ooh, good thing Haley and Kaylin were able to make Time Machine at least answer one question in round 3. Otherwise, I think we all could have agreed that would have just been a kind of a wash of a week.
Again,
at least for me. I look, and again, I'm looking at it from the perspective of, the performance of what I would have liked versus what I got, because I want each match to be a little bit closer. I want each match to show the knowledge, the potential of knowledge that both teams can bring. And, as I said, with Only Stupid Answers, we didn't get that. As well I'll mention with Inky in the Brain, we certainly didn't get that. And Scream Queens, it started that way, but then it did pick up towards the end.
Hey, I to an extent, I agree with you. Like, again, speaking as a fight fan, there are plenty of times where I wished every fight on every card could be 15-minute to 25-minute barn burners of just people trading heavy leather or scrambling a lot on the mat, going for submission, left and right, just putting on an exciting fight for the entirety of the card. But I realize that also can't happen. There have to be winners and losers, and some people have to win more spectacularly than others. So I take the KOs and I take the TKOs in stride. And this was a good showing for the Scream Queens. It just sucks that Haley Fouch couldn't get a win under her belt before the end of the year. But Time Machine, that was my team to beat for this tournament, and at least for the first round, they showed why. It was a bit of a struggle for Janine, but I think she found her footing in the quarterfinal matchup that we'll talk about later on in this discussion. But yeah, the Time Machine had a really good performance. Scream Queens had a good performance to go out on.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just at this point, like, I kind of personally at this point, I want Haley to have a better teammate. I want her to actually get a win because I think she has the knowledge to give herself a good run. And unfortunately with Kaylin, who I think would be a great mouthpiece, would be a great entourage posse member, or maybe even someone for like a Freebird rule kind of thing. But I just don't think that Haley and Kaylin complement each other well enough to actually be a solid team anymore.
I don't disagree with you. I mean, they kind of have similar strengths, and sometimes that hurts a team more than helps.
I mean, take a look at Case and myself when we were in fandom versus now you and me. Which team works better? It's you and me, because Case and I have too many similar strengths. Whereas you and I, we actually complement each other. Like, all the crap that I don't care about, you've studied and you know. All the stuff that you struggle with, I've studied my whole entire life and I know. So, I didn't have that with Case. Like
the Bendu and like Thanos said with Gamora and the knife balance, it works out well. And in this case, Scream Queens, they had good balance last year, and then it kind of just fell over. So hopefully both of them, whether it be individually or as a team with other partners or with each other, regardless of how the draft plays out, hopefully they find some footing again next season.
Maybe. Which, boy howdy, I hope the same thing happens for the Self-Righteous Brothers after what a damn match between Looney Bin and Self-Righteous Brothers. My heart was breaking either way, motherfuckers. Like, it's just the sad fact of life. But I couldn't be more satisfied with the fact that Looney Bin, after such a close loss in their debut, got to go on to round 2.
Yeah, Looney Bin, if not for Tom's gameplay, they also get you with everything that comes out of their mouth, every mannerism that they conduct. The big storyline out of this match was, does Tom have any independence? Or is he basically the Igor to Video Drew's Dr. Frankenstein? What is the relationship between them? And really the only answers we get out of them are Tom will speak softly and answer questions correctly and occasionally say something about someone dying. Or being in someone's house when he's not supposed to be in their house. As for the Self-Righteous Brothers, 0-2. They've been eliminated 2 years in a row in the opening round of these Schmoedown Teams tournaments. This has been a very, very unlucky year for Whitney Seibold. Like, he was able to secure that number 1 contendership with Bibbs against the Shire Wolves, but it's the Shire Wolves. So already you're kind of fighting an uphill battle. And then from then on, whether it be official matches in the singles and teams divisions, or be it exhibitions, spoilers for those of you who don't have Patreon, but he's just come out on the losing end every single time this year. And we discussed it with him on this podcast. It's a matter of he watches a lot of movies, but those movies just don't happen to get asked about very much in the Schmoedown. So he's kind of at a handicap for that reason. Thankfully, Mark Hoyk makes up for it. But for the second year in a row, they got beat by someone who scored higher than their 31 points.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's kind of like when Wolves of Steel took on Above the Line. They finished that match with 32, 33 points, and they still lost to 35 points. That's insane. So, yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what happens with them in the draft and in the 2020 season, because, as I just said, they're great players, but Whitney has had an incredibly unlucky year. So will anyone want to, if he gets drafted, how high or low will he be in terms of the manager's picks?
Probably, unfortunately, on the lower side, but I hope that people will see the consistency that he still had, from his last 3 seasons of gameplay. Because, I mean, sure, 2017, critically acclaimed was knocked out in the first round of that tournament, but his numbers are still good. I mean, shit, look at his performance in 2018's Free For All. He lasted 12 rounds. That's hell. First Free For All, that was enough to be considered for MVP. The only reason that nobody else was even close was because Bibbs, 22 rounds. You're gonna get MVP at that point, But
again, though, it's a season for season thing, and you can have a good season 5, and you can have a really bad season 6. That's why I keep making the sports analogies in all of our videos. It's because this is a sport, and the Pittsburgh Steelers or the Minnesota Vikings, they could have a really good season one year, and then the next season, for whatever reasons, they could just completely shit the bed.
Yeah, so please, managers, pick them up and give them a shot. And you know what? Seriously, Whitney, I know I mentioned this and I had to cut it out on air just because it kind of derailed the flow of the conversation. But reach out to me, and let's see if we can if I can hook you up with a studying group. So, and maybe Nico, you can join us, and you can discover some.
I'll have time to actually join it then.
Yay!
Because it was school bullshit anymore.
Exactly. Which I think is safe to say what a certain bossy team has been doing the last few months, and that's why Who's the Boss gave an almost perfect performance in their match against Inky and the Brain. AKA the match that broke the camel's back as far as that team is concerned, because seriously, Rachel is too good to be with someone like Devon. All he is doing is dragging her down.
And I think that's why they went with that angle in the post-match interview of they're not communicating well together. They're not trusting each other's guts. And so, yeah, this is a team that had potential but didn't reach it. So it might be time to hit the reset button on both of them and see where they end up in the next season with the draft. For me, it's not even a 2-on-2 teammate for Rachel. I feel like she just needs to be surrounded in a faction or whatever the word for a bigger team that's not faction would be.
Freebird.
Because something like that. But she needs to be within a group of people who will be able to elevate her to that next standard, because she's been the back of that team of Inky and the Brain, and it's time for someone else to take the reins and let her ride the saddle for a bit, and so she can get improvements.
And that's why, sure, at first I was blasting the trumpet of Fouch Silvestrini 2020. I'm actually gonna change my mind on that, because it was brought to my attention that oh yeah, duh, Liz Shannon Miller. She's a fantastic competitor. So why don't we have Shannon Miller and Rachel Silvestrini team up? Because, Liz Shannon Miller's even said, she's not necessarily that great at some of the more animated or, some of that kind of stuff. Whereas that is Rachel's bread and butter.
Complementing each other.
Yes, again, to use us as an example, you've got the guy who is obsessed with Star Trek and Disney live action animation, and we got the guy who actually likes the Fast and Furious movies and the Rocky films. So,
Too bad Fast and the Furious is gone now.
oh, thank Christ.
hey,
Hey, I'm pissed that Ghibli's gone, man. So
I was willing to actually study Ghibli once I had time to do so.
And you would have been in for a damn treat, but no, because we all have to be like Brian Michaels. We have to think Japanese animation's garbage. All right, sorry, Brian. I know you don't actually think that, but just still, ugh.
I just love how 2 categories 2 years in a row for Phantom Fight that have been suggested by Paul Oyama have both bit the dust after the season has ended.
Well, let's be fair here. Kaiju is extremely hit and miss, whereas Ghibli is extremely great with only a couple of ands. For me.
Fair enough. And accessibility is probably one of the things that
also the killer, is that if you want to see it, without having to go to CD websites, you have to go to HBO Max, and that's like $15 a month. Ain't no one got that right now, man. So
we've been talking about Inky and the Brain so much. We've kind of left Who's the Boss under the bus here because
please.
The big question going into this match was, where are the heads of the Horsemen at? Because I would assume this was taped right after Mark Riley had lost to Stacey Howard.
Yes.
And so, there were a lot of concerns about, do the Horsemen still have it, or are they all on their way out? And then some things changed, and John Roca and Ben were able to have good performances in the singles tournament, and then that sort of woke up the Horsemen to the point that, they weren't going to be denied any further. And they just put on the game of their lives against Inky and the Brain, and it showed. It showed that the Horsemen were back, and the fact that the Founding Fathers now have the team's titles, that obviously one was taped before the other, but that still helps in overall morale of the 5 Horsemen. So I see good things for them as we go further into this discussion of the tournament bracket. We already know Ben is in contention for the singles title at the Spectacular. We're going to talk about that later. And we know the Founding Fathers are going to be defending the team's titles at the Spectacular as well. So there's going to be a heavy Horseman presence at the Spectacular.
Well, look, I hate to say this, but it's not Spectacular without some Horsemen. I mean, literally, John Roca has been in, at the very least, a number 1 contenders match. Or actually, no, literally, he's been in... 2017.
He was in 2 matches in the first Spectacular.
Yep.
He defended the belt unsuccessfully against Ethan
in 2018.
In last year's Spectacular.
Oh, yeah, and then he had the number 1 contenders match in 2017 because the tackle. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so then, literally, John Roca's time is Spectacular, but again, we'll get there in a bit.
He is for the Spectacular what Shawn Michaels has been for WrestleMania before he retired.
Actually, and because I understood that reference, well said. And the thing about Who's the Boss is I knew they were going to win. I knew they had to get the momentum back. I knew they had to just get their head out of their butts and pull off the win. They had to. And thank God they did. Otherwise, I would have looked like a real idiot, even though I know everybody wanted Rachel to win. It's yes, I want Rachel to succeed, just not with Devon. Literally. Anybody else who is her equal in terms of trivia. Because Devon is entertaining as hell. I want him as a manager. I want him as a mouthpiece. I don't want him as a competitor.
And we'll finish off with this. I feel like the same thinking I applied to Rachel, the same thinking can also be applied to Devon, but there needs to be more work put in. Because I see potential for him to become somebody as a player as much as a mouthpiece, but he has a lot more ground to cover than Rachel does. So surround him with the best possible people you can surround him with, and hopefully through osmosis and through studying routines, he'll pick up the lessons.
See, okay, everything you just said about Devon, I don't think could actually work unless he were to pull an Eric Zipper and wind up in a faction that will actually play to his strengths. So, let's talk about Loose Cannons versus Crimson Fury. Talk about one of the most improved teams of the year. You know, Crimson Fury came in, and I thought they were going to, buckle under the pressure because Stacy did just have her big win against Mark Riley. But then I realized, oh, wait, no. Because her last match was against Brendan, and she got knocked the fuck out. So,
but you still picked Crimson Fury to beat Loose Cannons, and I give you credit for that. The factor here was which Stacey Howard would we be getting? Because, again, her consistency is inconsistency. She has a really strong high and a really low low. And she had just come off that really low against Brendan Meyer. So it was a matter of, could we be getting another really big high for her in Crimson Fury's tournament debut? They already had a successful match against Late to the Party. Which is part of Tim's family in a way. And this was another chance to show that it wasn't a fluke, that they are a bona fide team to be reckoned with. And they beat the singles champion and his partner in a grueling match, very high scoring. Came down to one of the weirdest 5-point questions ever, but somehow Tim knew the answer. Yeah. Tim knew the answer to that one. Paul and Eric did not. And so, we're in a position now where, for the first time since the draft was brought up, the dungeon is vulnerable to losing somebody.
I'd be okay with that. Sorry.
I don't know if I would be, because Zipper, like you said, Zipper has found a faction that applies to his that benefits him. That plays to his strengths, and now he's at risk because he doesn't have a belt and he's not in title contention right now. So he's in a weird spot where he could be the guy who gets left out of the dungeon come draft time. And again, the whole reason we're in this predicament now is because of how good Tim and Stacy have been since pairing up together.
Yeah, absolutely. Which which I can also actually say for the Drews, Andrew Guy and Drew McWeeny, who let's just call it like it is right now. Their first 4 wins, only one of those teams put up an actual fight. And that was Only Stupid Answers with Robert Adams. I can't say the same for who was their first match again? I already forgot.
Their first match was actually Bateman and Dagnino.
That one doesn't count. I think it was actually Inky in the Brain. Yeah. Devon didn't show up, of course. Then they also went up against again, another real easy team. Or no, sorry. Yeah, never mind. Bateman Dagnino does unfortunately count. But
it's been Bateman Dagnino, Inky in the Brain, Only Stupid Fanatics, and then we get here to the Wildberries.
And Case and I don't take back what we said. We really don't. I still don't like that match. I don't like, and granted, we don't know the precedent. We don't know the ruling. I just didn't like it in execution. At all. But, 'tis what 'tis.
I'll say this. The Wildberries tried in this one. Although I feel like more effort was given from Elliot than from Josh. I feel like Josh was just there to have a good time. Like his interests have kind of moved on a little bit. Like he'll still play when asked, but I don't know if the passion is there anymore. He's kind of just like wishing he could rely on what he was able to rely on when he first started in season 1. And Drew, they're evolving as a team. They want to consistently get better. McWeeny wants his belt back that he never lost. Guy is hungry to finally become a champion. He realizes he has the personality to carry the Schmoedown to great heights as one of its mega heels. It's just a matter of having the hardware to be able to do that. And the family showed that despite their earlier record maybe being padded to an extent, that there's still a bona fide team.
And we'll get more into that a little later on in the conversation. With the final match in round one, that was, well, we can't call them evil geniuses anymore. And I don't know if we can call them supreme intellect, because Lon kind of fucked right off right at the end there. So, look, Paddington 2, there was not a doubt in my mind, especially after Atchdy did get that perfect round, even if he did miss the bonus question. 87, dude, come on. And then, of course, they spun a Hitchcock, and Alonso just ran the table, and it was great.
Yeah, this has been a rough year for Lon Harris. Like, in the same conversations I said about Whitney Seibold and Haley Fouch, it's been a tough year for Lon because
he's won one match.
Yeah, he had one win, and then he went through this situation where he kept getting separated from certain partners and then never getting to really capitalize on the momentum of the teams he was in. Jonathan got demoted to the manager position, so JTE was brought back in, and then JTE moved away, so the evil geniuses never got to really find their footing again. And then we bring in Simon, the British guy whose last name I can't remember at the moment. Simon Thompson, who is a very hilarious individual, and he'll definitely be a good draft pick if you're looking for morale on your faction. Like, he'll brighten your spirits greatly just by how funny he is. And he knows a lot about John Woo, but outside of that, this wasn't the best first showing a competitor could have. And granted, Adam from the Movie Guys also had a bit of a rough debut earlier in the season, but then look at what he did in this first round of the tournament. Even though in a loss, the Movie Guys as a combined unit still showed that they are both very capable players. And so maybe next season Simon Thompson will have a better showing depending on where he ends up. But this has not been a good year for Lon Harris, and he knows it, and it hurt him. And meanwhile, the Paddington 2, and we said it when we were shooting our reactions earlier today, you can go back and look at the videos from earlier this week. They are a very high-tier team that has a mid-tier record. And
hell, I'd even call them a championship-level team with a mid-tier record.
One of the competitors on the Paddington 2 has competed for a title before. It's just been a matter of weird circumstances that have kept them from getting to where they actually should be in terms of record and in terms of stature in the Schmoedown. And this was a good first step to show that they are capable of good things under the right circumstances.
Yeah. You know, and as we come back to the bracket, let's talk about the matches we've already seen, and then we'll touch upon the last one that we still have yet to see. So, now, speaking of the Paddington, or let's go to Who's the Boss versus Crimson Fury. I'm just going to say this right now. To anybody who thought Crimson Fury was going to win, why?
I didn't even have them making it out of the first round. And again, it's because of the inconsistency of Stacey Howard. Like, her consistency is inconsistency. And the performance against the Loose Cannons was that high. And so then I figured, okay, if they make it out of this match, they're playing Who's the Boss, and then that's when they're going to have the next low.
And kind of, but, you know, they gave him a good fight.
They did give them a good fight, but again, Who's the Boss is just playing with a different mindset than they've had since the middle half of the season. Not middle half.
Well, since Chicago.
Yeah, since they woke up.
Yeah.
Like, ever since Riley lost to Stacey, they woke up. not just as a team, but as a faction of the Five Horsemen, as I said before. And so their eyes are still open, and the eyes are on the prize, and they weren't going to let Crimson Fury deter them. And not even Crimson Fury destroying the wheel was going to deter them in any way, shape, or form.
That was amazing.
And I'll say this much too: good on Tom for making sure that when they switched to the hat, or rather the bucket with the paper in it, that there was proper supervision of picking stuff out of that bucket. But also, from what I've been hearing behind the scenes, what effect are Ken and Grace really having on the teams that they supposedly manage?
Oh, none.
Like they're kind of just there as mouthpieces, and then we don't really see them have much of an impact on the actual game taking place. And I understand now why Shannon is sort of taking over for Mike in a way.
I was going to say, slight correction. They don't have that anymore. They did, I would argue, up until Corruption went for the belts. But after that, they as we've noticed, they've kind of been absent, and I think that's going to be a big story point next year. So, but again, we're not there yet. Not yet. We will be soon. As we come to the next match that we saw, which, look, I don't care what happens for the rest of this year. I don't care what matches you throw on my face. This is the match of the year. Paddington 2 versus the Family, where the Paddington 2 won it, but in good conscience, couldn't win it the way they did. So they willingly risked the win for an honest game. Yeah.
Kudos to them. Because not that many players, because wins and losses do matter in this game. And the more you win, the more you're featured. The less you win, the less matches you get. That's an obvious given. And so that kind of puts a fear in certain competitors of okay, even if it's cheap, I have to get this win because I want to keep progressing in this game and keep increasing my star power. But Matt Atchity, and he said it himself in the post-match interview, 10 years younger, he might have taken the win as is. But no, he wants an honest game. He wants to protect the integrity of the game. And
this is why the Schmoedown is not fixed, has never been fixed, will never be fixed.
Agreed. I didn't know how you wanted me to transition off of that, but yeah. I agree with you on 100%, and I feel like the Paddington 2, because of their integrity, they should be protected from the stipulations of the draft, because we realize that only the champs and ranked teams numbers 1 through 5 are going to be protected, and then 6 through onward isn't going to be protected. So I feel like they deserve an exemption simply because they had the win and they gave it up to preserve and protect the integrity of the game. And that means something. So much so that even Drew Guy, the biggest heel in the game, was like, kudos to you guys. You're better people than I am.
You're better men than I am. So, Harloff, I know you're not necessarily caring, but I will be making this a hashtag all across the fan leagues. I will ask Nico and Case to put this all over the Facebook groups, and we will keep them safe. So help me God.
I'm going to avoid the hashtag itself simply because I don't want to confuse the people who made the Paddington 2 movie.
Oh, it's fine.
But, the good game by both players involved, and it comes down to what we said before. High-tier teams, but the Paddington 2 has a mid-tier record. They've lost more matches than they've won, but every match they've lost has been with a score of 30 or higher.
They've lost to the Odd Couple, former
team champs.
They've lost to Time Machine in sudden death. It was great. And then they lost this match by 1 point.
So they've lost to very capable players, and the same goes for when Matt Atchity was with Gray Drake, lost to very capable players. So regardless of the iteration, because this is essentially just What the Flick 2.0 with a different partner, the whatever team Matt Atchity is on always has a great showing, and the record just might not be a good. It might not show that they've had those good showings, but they are a very capable team and deserve to continue on. Family, this was, we mentioned earlier that their record has sort of been padded early on, but this
is the proving match for them.
Yes, controversy or lack thereof aside, this was a good proving ground match for them to show that, like, hey, we are as good as the record shows. They are worthy of that 5-0 status.
Yes, this was the match that finally made me shut up and be like, okay, fine, Burnett, you cheating bastard, you earned it. As we come to the match that this is the last match that we're aware of as far as the end result. And Nico, I'm sorry. But let's talk Looney Bin and Time Machine.
Okay, I hadn't thought about this after the match finished, but what did Drew have on her board for that first question about the Chronicles of Narnia? Did it say the Chronicles of Narnia, or did it say the Narnia Chronicles? Because they did count that point for her.
I'd have to double check. Either way, I just remember thinking she didn't get it.
Because she said the Narnia Chronicles, but I never actually looked at what was on her board. And, sometimes, like, after a person has said the correct answer, you can get away with kind of fooling around with your verbal answer so long as it's correct on the board itself.
Yeah,
but if they counted that point and she didn't deserve that point, then we should honestly have gone to sudden death. But
yeah.
regardless of that, this was, again, a strong showing by both teams. But I think I said it best in the reaction. There are some fighters who are really, really, really good, but have that one weakness that keeps holding them back. And for some fighters, it's checking leg kicks. And in Ethan's case, his checking of leg kicks is Disney movies, specifically the animated version, but also a few live-action Disney movies as well. He keeps getting stumbled by that particular genre. And for some reason, he hasn't corrected it yet. I don't know if it's of his own fault. I'm pretty sure he's been studying. And maybe it's just one of those things that his brain doesn't process as well as other things. But I do know that those have stuck with him. Like, having heard interviews from other people, and we talked to him ourselves earlier in New York, midway through this year, and he mentioned that there were some questions in certain matches that have stuck with him. There are people who question, like, how seriously does he take this game? Simply because of how relaxed he is. But he takes the game seriously, whether he lets it on or not. And so, like, those questions are probably going to eat away at him for a while. But getting to who actually won the match, the Looney Bin. First off, Drew Grant is one of the best characters we've had introduced this year. And as I said in videos we've done earlier this week, Dollface Emma McAllister, she would be very proud of the Looney Bin and the character work that they've been doing. The binary code, the wires and nuts and bolts that she thought Janine was an actual machine. And I'm very glad Janine is not. Otherwise, I'd be afraid of her because of my known fear of cyborgs. But
you root for Janine every time.
Because she's my girl.
She's a cyborg.
I was supposed to manage her in the fan leagues at one point, and then she got called up before we ever got to have that become a thing. But I've still remained her friend. I've still remained an ally to her career for the longest time. I want to see her get that belt because I know how much it means to her. And yeah, we learned a lot of interesting things in this match. Tom has a dead body. Ethan has seen a dead body, and Tom has probably one of the best accuracy rates of any individual player in a team that we've seen so far this season. Like Frank
Dudes,
Janish is probably gushing at the mouth from how good Tom has been.
the dude's missed literally one question this entire tournament. That's
Exactly.
insane.
That it is, and if Drew doesn't become a hindrance to him as a player, like obviously they balance each other well in terms of player chemistry. In terms of gameplay, that's a different discussion. But like, she is the voice for the team, and he, although speaks softly, has the mind. So it works out well, and it's gotten them very, very far. And yeah, whoever wins this last match as part of the quarterfinals, they have a tough test in front of them.
Yeah.
I just hope that like it's both players on the Looney Bin having a strong showing, because
Yeah.
I this is one of those cases where I don't want an imbalanced team having those matches we saw earlier in the preliminary round.
Yeah.
I want to see a competitive match as we get further in this tournament. And the Looney Bin is capable of doing that. I'm just hoping that both players on the team show up to play.
Which, obviously, it's what I'm hoping for as well, because I think if you put a gun to my head and ask me who is my favorite team right now, it's the Looney Bin. I love their characters, I love their personalities, and I love how varied their knowledge is. Like, Tom really does seem to be an unstoppable machine. And thank God for it, because the dude has this crazy ability to pull up the most random shit about movies that you wouldn't like. Even like I, as quote unquote good as I am, I wouldn't have known in a million years what the hell the name of that Jaeger was in Pacific Rim. But Gypsy Danger, he just pulled it up like that. I'm like, Jesus, man. So.
And we still don't really know anything about Tom behind the scenes. Like, where did he come from? What does he do for a living?
I'm okay with that, honestly. I prefer the mystery as far as he's concerned. Although, maybe, just maybe, we'll find out at Spectacular.
Perhaps.
It'd be nice to finally meet Drew in person, so we can maybe have another one of our famous Twitter debates back and forth in person, maybe over a drink this time. But
do the Looney Bin have a table booked for the expo that's taking place before the Spectacular event?
I hope so.
Because those would be very unique interactions between fans and competitors, especially with those two who are almost always operating in character.
Video Drew says, right answer. Ugh, God. All right. But yeah, speaking of that last quarterfinal. Okay, let's start predictions then, shall we?
Yeah, again, one last time to specify. It aired earlier today on Friday, the day this is being uploaded. We don't know who won, so yeah.
Nope. So yeah. Shazam versus The Odd Couple. Now, The Odd Couple had a pretty much perfect game last time they played.
One question missed the entire time, and that was by Mark Andreyko in round one.
Yeah. Shazam had one hell of a performance with a couple of multiple choices and a couple of missed questions in round one. That's fine. It happens. So, even though statistically speaking, I would be smart to go with the Odd Couple in this match. There's a reason they're the number one contender. But I think if Emma Fife's already starting to try and play head games with Mark, I don't think it's gonna. I think it's gonna sort of start to cloud his judgment a little bit. And I'm not saying he's gonna throw the match or anything, and with Snyder, he's usually great in a team setting, but sometimes he has been known to get in his own head, like in Odd Couple versus Shire Wolves 2. So I think even with Roxy's management, I actually think Shazam's going to take it, just because the kid is usually pretty calm and collected, and Bibbs, he really knows how to perform in these tight scenarios.
So with me, I can't shake off Brendan Meyer's performance against Bateman in the semifinals of the singles tournament. It still rings in my head. And, that's one bad match out of a very good career that Brendan Meyer has had since joining the Schmoedown this year. But it's still in my brain. And, so if he got all those questions that he didn't know, nothing's stopping him from being in another match where the same scenario comes into play, where he gets a lot of questions that are about movies that he might not be as familiar with. What's also sticking in my brain is that Jeff and Mark, they have struggled in singles settings more than team settings throughout their career. Jeff works best when he has someone holding his hand through the process. Even if he's the more successful one that day, he does his best when he has someone watching his back. And Roxy might not have. She did good for what she had to do, but in terms of what happened in New York, he probably could have used some better guidance to calm him down, because he had already beaten himself in round one, and that took him out of the match for the remainder of it. Mm-hmm. Mark, he has had some good showings in singles up until the very final moment, up until the very last question, if not the final round. Jeff brings out the best in him, and Mark brings out the best in Jeff. These are two really good individual players that have found their footing together as a team. So I feel like they could have a bad performance, but them being with each other is what keeps them going and what keeps their heads in the match. So I'm going with the Odd Couple on this one, not because they're the favorites, but because of just the team chemistry they have. They bring out the best in one another. They are able to calm each other down. Roxy obviously helps, but I feel like having someone by their sides gives them a special emotional boost that allows them to be as good as they are.
Fair enough. All right. So now that's it for the quarterfinals. Now we got two semis to predict, a finals to predict, and then the big event. Okay. You and I both have Who's the Boss over the family, right?
Yes, I do. I just feel like Mark Riley and Ben Bateman they've woken up. They were asleep for a little bit this season, and then they finally woke up. And I've addressed where I thought the point was that woke them up, and they haven't taken their eyes off the ball since.
Yeah. Look, family actually has proven now that they are a solid team. But I'm kind of done with Andrew Guy. And I kind of want to see Drew McWeeny realize the family is wrong for him, tell them all to go eat a goat, and maybe team up with someone else who's very talented but doesn't quite have the right teammate for him, shall we say.
Well, for the record, obviously we know that the Founding Fathers, regardless of what happens at the end of this year, they're going to be protected. Corruption is also supposedly going to be protected because they're probably within the top 5, having just been the champions. Yeah. So I would assume whoever's in these semifinals, if the records line up properly, then they'll probably also be protected as well.
As of right now, Looney Bin wouldn't. Odd Couple, yes. Who's the Boss? Absolutely. The family, yes.
Definitely the family, because they're 5-0 right now.
Yeah. So, look, they'll take the hit and they'll be fine. Although, like I said, I'm pretty sure that Drew will literally just walk if they lose.
So actually, Harloff was on an episode of Chill to Action this week, and he mentioned that when this fiasco was going on with the Paddington 2 challenging their own win, Harloff was actually whispering in Guy's ear, telling him, "Hey, listen, in the post-match, I want you to turn on Burnett." So there was potential for a family dissension, but I don't think it was with Drew and Drew. It was with
Guy and Burnett.
So yeah, you might get half of your wish if the family loses, but I don't know how. I don't know how it'll play.
Fair enough. Yeah, and look, I do think that it's Who's the Boss's tournament again. Like, I actually think that, because just from the study sessions that I've been in with Ben and Riley, they're hungry. They actually want this again. So, and I think they have what it takes to pull it off. Surprisingly.
I agree with you.
And then, of course, we come to the other side of the bracket. So, for me, it's Shazam versus Looney Bin, and you have Odd Couple versus Looney Bin, and I think this is where we actually have two different results. So, I think if it is Odd Couple who go to the semifinals, they win. They're going to the finals. But if it's Shazam, I think this is where they have their first loss. But it won't be by much. It'll be by like a point.
Interesting.
I can't believe I'm saying this, because I love me my bibs. But if you put them, and here's the thing, who is technically the better players between both sets? Bibbs and Tom, and Bibbs and Tom are pretty equal, and Drew already played Brendan, and Brendan was already improving way much by then. But in terms of just having that chemistry between players, I still think Looney Bin just have a slightly more defined sense of camaraderie between them than Bibbs and Brendan. And again, they're getting there. It's like here's the scales. So I'm kind of playing by heart a little bit. But again, Odd Couple versus Looney Bin, I don't think it's even going to be that close, actually.
I like how you said that the Looney Bin's camaraderie is defined to them, but to everyone else, it's still a very big mystery.
Oh yeah.
I want to root for the Looney Bin in this, simply because, like, new guard, but also it would be nice to see one more female competing at the Spectacular, so Laura Kelly's not all by herself.
It'd be great, but I just don't see it happening.
And also in terms of personality, like the Founding Fathers versus the Looney Bin, like, that would be so cool to watch it live and in person. At the same time, I picked the Odd Couple, and based on the logic I just gave for them beating Shazam, unless Jeff gets in his head to the point that he can't get out of it, because that has happened before, but even with Mark by his side, it hasn't happened as much.
And I hate to say this, but if there was a team that could get in Jeff's head, and in Mark's head by extent, it's Looney Bin.
I want to agree with you, but at the same time, like,
well,
Jeff
Jeff
essentially.
Sorry, go ahead.
If I may, Jeff essentially pioneered the theatrical nonsense that has allowed Looney Bin to thrive. Like, he does this for his entrances, and Mark is the straight man, pun unintended. You get what I mean. You get what I mean by that. But like, Jeff is the funny man. Mark is the no-nonsense guy who occasionally has a funny joke here and there, but for the most part, he's the no-nonsense guy. And they figured out their dynamic to the point that like one's nonsense or lack thereof doesn't really have an impact on each other's gameplay. They figured out how to make it work to their advantage. The Looney Bin, as crazy as they are, I don't know if anything they will do or say will phase Jeff and Mark because they're already used to doing some of that stuff themselves. So I feel like Odd Couple will take this unless Drew has the game of her life, because we already know Tom is going to be playing 99% perfect.
Yeah.
If not higher.
So you know what then? Here, just for the sake of entertainment and just for the sake of throwing a real monkey wrench in all this, you know what? You've convinced me. I'll actually change my idea, and I'll just go straight from my heart over my head, and let's say it's Who's the Boss versus the Looney Bin in the finals. I don't think, and this is where I actually think the Looney Bin finally comes to a halt. And I'm sorry to crush your dreams there, Nico, but I think we'll have Horseman versus Horseman going for the team titles.
Again, it comes down to when were these matches taped? Because, again, the further we got along in these tapings, the more Ben's back injury was starting to show.
And yet he was still cranking out great performances. He
was. But who's to say that there wasn't a bad one in the middle of all those good performances that he had? We don't know for certain. But yeah, I feel like Who's the Boss's momentum might just be too astronomical for like whether it is the Odd Couple or whether it is the Looney Bin. I feel like Who's the Boss? They've been on the warpath. They've been on a revenge tour, and they want some redemption on. If it is the Odd Couple, they want some redemption for what happened in Chicago, and Ben wants to be able to prove himself that in a live event setting against very capable players, he can handle himself and become somebody. And this is the last thing he has to do to get to that point to prove it. And I feel like he will. I'm going with Who's the Boss to win the tournament. And we also got to keep in mind 5-round format. And, you know, having been in the finals of tournaments before, having been in championship matches before, that benefits Who's the Boss a little bit more than it does the Odd Couple, even though they've been in championship matches themselves. There's been more matches, especially with Mark Riley, in the 5-round aspect.
Actually, I think Jeff.
Oh, you're right. The Patriots reign. I forgot that. Sorry.
Yeah.
So, scratch what I just said.
Well, no. And Draco is the outlier here, though. How many title matches has he been in outside of the Odd Couple? One. How many 5-round matches has he been in outside of the Odd Couple? One. Bateman's had it at least. He's been in at least 2. So that alone does set at least a little bit of a difference. It doesn't make it really is still a toss-up, but I also think in terms of overall knowledge, Bateman is single-handedly the most improved player of the year, and that's also why I think he has what it takes to now beat the Odd Couple or Looney Bin or Shazam.
It's that Moneyball strategy, like just spending all of your time doing the statistics. Like we give Caleb Coho shit because that's how he approached writing questions at first, like going through IMDb and just reading everything he possibly could as opposed to watching the product. But in terms of a general movie trivia setting, that actually helps because a lot of the questions are about directors and composers and release dates and actors and
Oscar
plot
nominations
summary
and wins.
Yeah. It's the data. Like he studies the data. And he will watch movies in between, but he studies the data, and that data has been processed in his brain. Once it's in there, it's kind of hard to fall out unless you're not doing the proper studying to keep it in there.
Yeah.
And we know for a fact that he's been keeping the data in his brain.
Absolutely. So then with that, let's talk Spectacular. After what will hands down be a night of heavy partying the night beforehand.
Yes.
And we
yes.
and let's, I probably shouldn't say this on camera, but we all know the rule. At least the four of us who will be staying in one place together. The one rule. Just leave it at that. And boy, I'm just gonna say this right now. Trying to figure out who's gonna sleep where is gonna be real effing interesting.
We'll figure it out when we see the actual setup. Yeah.
I'm just saying there better be a couple of couches. That's all I'm hoping for. But yeah, Spectacular, December 7th, live in downtown LA. After we, of course, mingle and talk to everybody, we're gonna start with a number one contenders match as the finals of the singles tournament.
First off, can I just say this? I want to point something out.
Yeah, please.
Every Schmoedown Spectacular since the event's inception has had one person compete twice on the card. First Spectacular was John Roca. Second Spectacular, it was... Give me a moment. I'll remember it.
He won that singles title that year.
I'm sorry, why am I...
It was the most depressing title match I could have ever seen in my life.
Oh, Sam Levine. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Yes,
it broke my heart.
Sam Levine, and year 3 last year was Clark Wolf. This I was really hoping that we would have a Spectacular this year in which someone wouldn't be competing twice. But it looks like we might actually have a scenario in which
possibly 3.
Possibly 2 people will be competing twice, or 1 person will be competing 3 times.
Yeah.
So you can't always get what you want, but it's an interesting scenario to be in.
Sure, I mentioned the possibly 3 times, but according to my predictions, it ain't gonna happen because, first off, we'll start with the number one contenders match, the singles final, 5 rounds between Ben Bateman and Bibiani. Bibiani's got this in the bag. I'm sorry, Bateman. I really am. But who's got more 5 rounds experience? Bibiani. Who has a more overall knowledge from actually watching films and not just studying the data? Bibiani.
This is where I disagree.
Okay.
Because, so, Bibiani, and I'm probably quoting just other people who have said this in previous videos, but Bibiani has had the live event snatched away from him so many times this year. And the one thing he's wanted to do repeatedly is a big entrance for a live event. I feel like it's been snatched away from him so many times that his focus might be more on the pageantry than on the actual match itself. And Ben, he's laser focused on becoming a champion. And this is one of the matches, at least one of the matches, that he will have to do in order to accomplish that goal. He has one singular focus. Bibiani might be mentally divided. So I feel like this could be Ben's match to win. He's been playing great in the second half of this year. He no longer has the back issues that were plaguing him before. Doesn't have to worry about medication being an issue and fogging up his judgment. Again, singular focus makes a big difference. He wants that title and nothing else. Bibiani, he wants to put on a show. And sometimes we've seen it happen with certain people in the Schmoedown. Focusing on the show can sometimes take away from focusing on the game.
Fair. But lest we also forget, Bibiani also thrives in a live event. I mean, holy shit. 40 rounds at Free for All 3. 40 rounds.
But also, how much was he focused on the show aspect of it. No, he like that was when he was actually focused on the gameplay because he didn't have an elaborate entrance. He just wore his mask and came out with a thing of coffee in his hands, and then he did his "I'm still standing" thing for about 4 hours straight. Meanwhile, we've heard him discuss in Q&As, and we've heard it from other people. He has wanted to do a big entrance for
Well,
some of these live events. He had something planned against Chance for the Arizona event before it got snatched away. He had other things planned, and then they got snatched away. It's like this is his chance to finally execute that big entrance that he's been wanting to do. And because it's been a year in the making, he's going to want to make it perfect.
and yet I don't think he would do it now. I don't think he would actually do it now. Not when there's so much on the line. I actually think he would wait until it was like a teams match or an exhibition match, but not when this is literally you go for the belt the same day.
That's where you're wrong, because this is the WrestleMania of the Schmoedown, and if there were ever a stage to go big or go home, this is that stage. Like, New Day once came out of a cereal box that was like gigantic as part of their entrance. Like, this is the stage where you go all out in terms of the pageantry. If that's part of Bibiani's character, he always goes for the big pageantry stuff, and this is the biggest stage of them all for him to do that. So, and maybe I'm reading too much into it. He is a formidable player, but I'm just thinking like Ben has the singular focus. Bibiani has multiple things on his mind. Gameplay is obviously one of them, but also the pageantry of this big event, this big stage, is another thing on his mind. Ben just wants gold.
Sure. We'll agree to disagree on this one because I think there's a different match where that could happen. Then we come to the Star Wars title match. Alex Damon defends against Laura Kelly. Okay, Nico, just go first because I don't want to sound like I really am afraid that I'll be called a sexist or whatever just because experience.
The main thing that could prevent Laura from winning this title is Laura herself. Like, I am hoping that she looked at the post-match interview she did after she beat Andrew DiMolanta, heard the words that came out of her own mouth, and realized, wow, I seem really unconfident in that promo. I played really well against Andrew. I played really well in Chicago. I need to actually believe in myself. I need to believe in myself that I can beat this titan of the game that is Alex Damon. And if I believe in myself, I can do anything I set my mind to, including dethrone him of the Star Wars title. That's the mindset she needs to come in. She needs to come in with. So I hope that she adapted that mindset somewhere after that match was shot. And her friend from her podcast has been giving her the proper motivation to further develop that mindset. Because if it's not there, then she essentially is going to fall into the Jeff Snyder trap of beating yourself before the game has even begun.
Yeah. And I'm kind of afraid that she might do that unintentionally. Like, Alex at this point kind of has nothing to lose. Because he, to me, is almost inarguably the greatest Star Wars League player of all time.
He's already passed Whitwer in my mind.
Yeah. Like, if, let's say, Whitwer were to come right now and beat him, then there's an argument, but yeah, it's Damon. I'm just a little worried that experience is going to win out this time. You know, considering that Damon probably knows exactly what movie he would prefer to have on the wheel, or what movie he'd prefer to go to from his spin on the wheel. How much he's going to bet in round 3. How, he's probably been rehearsing with the buzzers, how, to sort of work on that. Like, again, I'm not I don't want to sound like I'm, anti-women. I'm not. But I just don't think he is going to go down yet. Not this time.
Again, for me, it all depends on what Laura Kelly shows up. Is it one that believes in her abilities, has looked at her performances and realizes I'm good at this, or is it the same person who interviewed Jen Sturger after her match and said, "Yeah, I played good in this match. It sucks. I'm gonna lose to Damon in Los Angeles." No, that is the wrong mindset to have when you are playing the best player around. You need to believe that you are
Better.
10 feet tall. You need to believe that you are 10 feet tall and on top of the world, and in order to beat the best. And I'm hoping that she has the right people around her to put that mindset in her brain so that she can accomplish the unthinkable and beat Alex Damon.
Yeah. Which is what I don't think is going to be a problem for Kevin Smets when he rightfully takes the belt back from Mike Kalinowski in the Inner Geekdom Championship match. I'm done with Mike. I'm done with him. Kevin, kick his ass. Take over. Now, Nico, tell me why I'm wrong.
I don't think you are. I think you're underestimating Mike Kalinowski a little bit, because that's sort of what's been everyone's thing for the past 2 years, is underestimating Mike Kalinowski, and then he comes in and surprises us all.
It's not that I'm underestimating him. It's that he's been too busy putting his mind into other pies. He's been too busy trying to get all the belts that it's what's going to cost him literally all of his belts.
I don't necessarily agree with that, because like knowledge is knowledge, and even if it's different knowledge, it still somehow helps you in the end. And granted, it's been almost 2 months since he lost the tag titles in Orlando, so he's had all the time since then to focus exclusively on Inner Geekdom again. So I feel like he's not going to have that many slip-ups. But that said, Kevin Smets, we know the kind of worker that he is. We know how passionate he is about the Inner Geekdom division and how passionate he has been about getting to that title. That first loss to Mike, he beat himself more than Mike beat him. Mm-hmm. And it's been eating away at him for so long. And he has pretty much shut himself off from social media as of recently, because he just wants to focus on this last match of the season. The title has been his goal, and we know how goal oriented he is, and he's not going to stop until he gets there. And I feel like his time is finally coming. That loss had to happen for him to get to where he needed to be for this championship opportunity.
Yep. And that's it. Hashtag down with corruption. Hashtag down with Mike. Make him a good guy again so I can like him. I'm kidding. Then we got 2 more matches left. And that is the teams. Teams belts are on the line.
And we have Horseman versus Horseman for this.
We do. Which is what when I spoke to Mark Riley, it's what he would honestly want himself. And yeah, part of me would be curious to see, because like at the beginning of the year, the Horsemen were all but non-existent. It was Dan and Roca barely holding on, coming off of a couple losses to Corruption. And you had Mark and Ben coming off that loss in Chicago. Then all of a sudden, we got Houston. And again, the momentum kept going downwards. And I'm like, oh, fuck. What is going on here? Until John Roca versus Rachel Silvestrini happened. And then it stopped going down. But then we had Roca versus Kalinowski. Then we had Roca versus Bibiani, and it was a fantastic freaking match. Then we came around to Orlando, and that's when the floodgates opened. I'm sorry, this second half of the years belonged to the Horsemen, and I actually think that while I don't think they'll defend, I do think the Founding Fathers deserve a lot of credit for this year, and I do think Who's the Boss will take it for this time around and actually will defend against corruption when they inevitably go back for the belts.
Here's where I'm at.
Okay.
Have Mark Riley and Ben Bateman woken up? Yes, they have.
Yeah.
But so have Dan Merle and John Roca. And whenever they accomplish a goal, they immediately move on to another goal. And what is the goal for the Founding Fathers? John Roca desperately wants to defend a title for the first time in his career. He has not done that. It has eaten away at him for the longest time, and he wants to finally get over that personal hurdle. Dan Merle is undefeated at live events so far. And I feel like the live event aspect has hindered Ben in the past, whereas it's been very beneficial to the Founding Fathers, specifically Dan Merle, but also John Roca has benefited as well. Personally, I'd rather see a faction full of gold. I'd rather have that gold spread out amongst its members than have one person hold multiple belts, because then that just shows that you have a very strong group as opposed to one very strong player on a group. And so I'm going with Founding Fathers successfully defend.
Okay. And look, either way, I'm happy. So this is one where I kind of don't care who wins. If this is how it shakes out, where Who's the Boss wins the tournament and goes up against the Founding Fathers, I'm happy regardless. And then we come to the final event, or the final fight of the event. Paulo Yama versus either Ben Bateman or William Bibiani. And actually, for me, this comes down to a coin flip. Where, and again, I know I sound a little selfish here with some of my picks, but I think if Bateman wins the number one contenders, I think he'll fall just short of Paul, only because Paul has literally never lost a title defense in the fan leagues or in the Schmoedown.
I mean, you're not wrong about that particular statistic for Paul. One thing's for certain, and that's that Paulo Yama, he's going to be the villain of the crowd for that match because of things that have happened in the past, whether he meant for those things to happen or not. Ben Bateman and Bibiani are just really, really over with the crowd, whereas Paul is still finding his groove. He's still finding his relationship with the people involved in the Schmoedown behind the scenes and in the audience. They don't know him the same way we've gotten to know him. It's going to come down to drive for me, because I already had Bibiani losing the match from earlier in the night. So it's going to come down between Paul and Ben. And Paul is capable of slip-ups. I don't want to root against my dungeon head friend, but at the same time, it would be a very cool way to see the spectacular end with Ben Bateman, after chasing gold for the longest time, finally reach it on the grandest stage of them all in the final match of the season. Like the entire audience would erupt over that, because the Action Army is strong in its numbers. Team Action had a great following before Call to Action was a thing. So I feel like maybe in terms of the show, in terms of the Schmoedown product, Ben As for who will actually win, I also have it at a coin flip. I'm not sure. What questions will be asked, and will Paul's head be on straight? More so than it was when he was in New York, because Kaiser wasn't there to help him.
No,
stay on the straight and narrow path of focus.
Stay on target.
And Smets, we love him, but I don't know what advice he gave Paul as that match was taking place. I'll say this though: Roxy not being there, that's going to be beneficial for Paul because he doesn't have to worry about her getting on his case for every little thing.
But now Dagnino, if it is Ben, might.
Possibly.
See,
but Dagnino has his own way of doing things.
Fair enough. And on the other side of my coin flip, I think if Bibiani makes it, because he's also never defended a title before, I think that'd be the case of drive meets possible stagnation. You know, because again, say what you will about New York, Paul was not in the fully correct headspace. You know,
I'll agree with you there. He wasn't in the right mind for New York, and he's admitted to it. He's said so himself. He played a bad game. He feels like he played a bad game. He wishes he had done some things differently. The mindset was not right for his first live event.
Yeah, and again, I think the momentum that Bibiani has had this year just can't be stopped right now. You know, and that's why I have him not just getting past Bateman, but also taking back the belt from Paul. But again, that's just for my personal, selfish pick.
There's a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of unknowns.
And that's sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, like, the one live event Bibiani has done, that was a free-for-all. That was essentially Ironman format composed into little sprints as opposed to a full-on marathon. This would be a straight-up regular 5-round format match. And Bibiani thrives better in the Ironman format than I would say he does in the 5-round format, but he's gotten better at those holes he's had with the 5-round format. Paulo Yama being the champ, he's going to manipulate that wheel as he has the right to do by being the champ to his advantage. And good on him for doing so. He's earned that right to do so by having the title. How will Bibiani adapt to it? That's the question.
Yeah. You're not wrong, actually. So we'll just have to see, because this is all just a fun game of what if. And holy crap, this conversation went on for way longer than I thought it would. But hey, that's fine. This is what we kind of wanted. So, and I guess this would count as a full episode then, wouldn't it? Kind of like a New York conversation, I suppose, huh?
Yep. Pretty much.
And when we get back, we'll talk about Spectacular in depth and whatnot, and I'll listen back to this and I'll just see how dead wrong I probably was in like pretty much all of my predictions when Mike holds the belts, Odd Couple takes the belts from Founding Fathers, and I don't know, Bateman becomes the next singles champ. I don't know, but until
I think we can be real on this though. If it were us also playing, these conversations would be way more biased than they were.
Oh yeah.
It's like,
oh yeah.
We'd obviously the goal is still clear. We want to be where these guys are right now.
And I will. I will find a way. So help me God. I will find a way to get myself into all 4 divisions because I know for a fact I am strong in all 4 divisions.
Your name will find its way into the draft some way, somehow. If not this year, next year.
Exactly. So, but until I can just go back to my wishful thinking, guys, Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the Who Cares Anyway podcast. We hope you enjoyed the conversation. And please, if you're watching this on YouTube, leave your comments down below of who you think is going to win the rest of the tournament, who you think is going to win Spectacular. If you listen to us on the podcast feed, make sure you guys subscribe and let us know your thoughts on Twitter at us. Nico, speaking of adding us, where may the good folks find you online?
Facebook, Twitter, YouTube at Nico Suave Regoli, or just Nico Suave with 4 random meaningless numbers at the end on Discord. Combat Wrestling Trivia on Facebook, Combat Wrestling Network on YouTube. The poorly made Twitter handle is at Combat Wrestling, the number 2. There's no letter G. Sometimes on TMG Entertainment, where I'm the Chokeslam Wrestling Debate Champion of the world. And of course, right here on Dedicated to Art and all the places Chris will say in just a moment. Hopefully, iMovie does not crap out on me by this time this video goes up, and I can finally get out that video of the Trivia for Thon 2 card lineup announcement for you all.
Please, that'd be great. And of course, you guys can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Stardust, Letterboxd, and Discord at Skywalker Dome. And you guys can follow this free channel on Twitter and Instagram at D2A Channel. Please like our Facebook page, join our Facebook group, keep up with the conversation. And so guys, upcoming, we do our Star Wars Resistance recap show, Viva la Resistance. We have our Mandalorian recap show, Manas Maketh Mandalorian. We also have this show next week. I'll be joined by a good friend of mine, Brooklyn Vale, and we're going to rank every episode of Epic Rap Battles of History. It's going to be a fun time. Anything else, Nico? Oh, yeah. Once again, to the family and friends of Emma McAllister, we are so sorry, and Emma, we love you. So,
Auditions.
Oh, yes, auditions, thank you. If you want to become part of the team next year, we are accepting submissions for behind-the-scenes personalities, for on-camera, if you are good at editing, graphics designing, so on and so forth, engineering. I'd love to start doing shows where I don't have to engineer the show, but it is what it is. You can email us with a resume at D2A, that is DTOA channel at gmail.com. So until next time, guys, you know what to do. Take care!
Love you, Emma.
Love you, Emma.